What's going on, boys and girls? My name is Michael SK, and welcome back to the Labyrinth of Grisaia. So last time, there's a bunch of shit that actually went down. Yuuji's sister is gone. And I guess Yuuji's sister, Kazuki, was kind of holding everything together. And now that she's gone, everything's falling apart. Yuuji's father is abusive as fuck. And he's been abusing both his mother and Yuuji. So they moved to a different location to try and get away from him. That didn't work out. He tracked him down and went back home. So things are going to get probably even more crazy. So let's go back into the Cocoon of Caprice 2. There's a nice blood splatter right there. Not to state the obvious, but Kazuki wasn't waiting for us there. Nothing had changed since we left. The god of that house was dead. There was no replacing her. That's how Yuuji apparently saw Kazuki, by the way. Apparently as a god. If you guys need a little bit of a recap there. Still, for a while after we returned, my father was unusually quiet. Maybe the man was sobered by what he'd done. Alright. Once or twice he even apologized. But that period of relative calm didn't last for long. I kind of sort of figured that, you know. We were quickly eating lunch, or eating quickly, my bad, through the money Kazuki. Oh wait, we were quickly eating through them. Okay, that made more sense. The money Kazuki had left behind, and my father couldn't adjust to our newly meager lifestyle. His debts accumulated until we were all but buried under their weight. And as his fears about the future grew, Dad once again started to quiet his anxiety through explosions of violence. Nothing was going to change. If we stayed with this man, he was just going to drag us down with him. For the second time, Mom and I decided to leave. We'd mess up on our first try. He found us because we ran to such a familiar place. This time, we were going to go someplace where nobody knew us. Some town we'd never even seen before. When you're trying to lay low, the basic rule is to look for an area with a large population and a high rate of residential turnover. But my mother, naturally enough, didn't know that at the time, so after a few hours transferring from train to train seemingly at random, we arrived somewhere in the rural southwest of Gunma Prefecture. Close enough. This place looks nice and friendly. I don't recall it too clearly. I was still a child being pulled along by his mother, and it was all a little overwhelming. But I do remember it was a quiet country town about 40 minutes from the central Takasaki station. Mom had walked out the door with nothing but the clothes on her back, telling my father she was taking me shopping. Given the circumstances, we hadn't been able to take much money. At a small real estate agency on the outskirts of town, nearly half of our escape fund vanished for the deposit of a one-story rental house. Oh, this is alright. Honestly, like, this is a nice little, like, eating area. You got a kitchen that, you know, suffices. I mean, it's kind of like it's like a little apartment, you know? This is what you would expect. Mom wanted privacy from the neighbors, but renting a detached house had been a real financial stretch. The place we found hadn't been inhabited for years. It was as desolate and dusty as a haunted house. There wasn't even a flush toilet. Okay, never mind. This place sucks. In itself, it wasn't exactly the most pleasant place you can call home, but the only thing that really mattered was that Mom and I had it to ourselves. Dad wasn't there. That was enough to make even a shabby house feel like paradise. Mom had her name removed from our old certificate of residence and appealed to have our change of address information restricted, given her status as a victim of domestic violence. After explaining the circumstances to the local school, she handled the procedures for my transfer as well. We had a home, and I had a school to attend, but we barely had time to catch our breath before the main problem reared its ugly head. To put it simply, there was no money. After a week spent sighing at her rapidly thinning wallet, Mom steeled herself and went out to find employment. I thought I said that she was going to go steal. Her days were spent working part-time at a canning factory, her nights as a hostess in a snack bar near the station. Man, it's such a sad situation.
自分で働いて暮らしていけるようになるまでは私が頑張るから。
Alright,
何
Mom.
も心配しなくていいのよ。
Oh, wait. Guess you're still talking. God damn it. I hate how it, like, if I click, it doesn't cut off their audio like it did in the Fruit of Grisaia. So if I misclick, or if I click too early, the audio would just keep on yelling. Anyways, Mom was orphaned so young that her education effectively ended before she left middle school. Determined to keep me from suffering the same hardships, she threw herself into a grueling work schedule. Come on, Mom, I don't need to work. Let me work as a hostess. Or host. Whichever one fits. In the mornings, I left the house with her and she headed out for her part-time job at the cannery. As we walked together, Mom pushing through the beat-up old bicycle she'd bought used, our neighbors would stare with undisguised hostility and whisper to each other. The woman who ran away from the city to ditch her husband. That was the only name they knew my mother by in that insular little town. Or insular. I don't know what that word is. When someone said that woman in our neighborhood, there was no mistaking who they meant.
おはようございます。
When she greeted them, there was no response. But once we passed by, we could hear whispers from behind our backs. What was that? I don't remember becoming her friend. Jesus Christ, I thought this was a nice neighborhood. I mean, it looks nice. And if Mom opted for nothing but a silent nod instead, it would be, I can't tell what's going on inside that woman's head. But you get right down to it. When you get right down to it, they didn't like having some strange outsider and her child in their neighborhood. The place had that quasi-medieval atmosphere typical of small rural towns. The fact that we'd come from Tokyo seemed to invite hatred. It didn't help that Mom was a single mother with no local ties. We were basically ostracized. Seasons changed, but the eyes of our neighbors never grew any warmer. The only locals who welcomed my mother's arrival were the male customers at the snack bar by the station. That night job must have contributed to her negative reputation as well. One day, a classmate at school used a word I'd never heard before. I honestly didn't know what it meant. Oh, here we go. So when I got home that afternoon, I asked my mother. Oh shit. Somebody told me your mom's a whore at school today. What does that mean? Damn, dude. Sometimes innocence can be cruel or crueler than malice. Meeting my gaze, Mom forced a quavery, defeated smile onto her face and said only, I'm sorry.
ごめんね、ユージ。ごめんなさい。
Yeah, Mom, it's all good. I didn't have the first idea why she was apologizing to me. It was more irritating than anything else. But I did understand that I must have said something I shouldn't have. What does Mom have to apologize for anyway? She's protecting me, isn't she? Mom was working hard to support the two of us. She didn't have a thing to be ashamed of. There was no reason for her to be sorry. Even as a child, or maybe exactly because I was a child, I believe that absolutely. My mother was a kind person, but no one treated her kindly. She'd finally managed to escape Dad, but she was still apologizing every time she opened her mouth. Very quickly, I learned to hate the words I'm sorry. I wanted to grow up right away. Watching my mother sacrifice herself to keep me fed was just too frustrating. I needed to become an adult so I could help her too. At that young age, I was already starting to strain for something like self-sufficiency. Still, there wasn't much I could do, or actually do, to contribute, with the exception of washing the rice and setting our cooker when Mom came home drunk from her bar. To be honest, my mother wasn't the best cook even when she was sober. Back when she was living on her own as a hostess with a nocturnal lifestyle, she mainly got by on convenience store lunches and the snacks her customers bought her at work. And even after she married and became a mother, we usually ate out or had something delivered. It was pretty rare for her to make an actual meal. When she told me we were going to cook for ourselves from now on to save money, all I could think was, wonder how long that's going to last. As it turned out, our dinners were mostly canned food Mom took home from her part-time job, plopped onto a plate, supplemented by very basic stir-fried or boiled dishes. And late in the month, as our money ran low, waiting for the next paycheck, there were days when we had nothing but fried rice on our table.
今日はこれしかないの。ごめんね。
Man, mother, don't say sorry. Yuuji hates that. It was a shoddy-looking lump of rice with fish paste or frozen vegetables as the only other ingredients. Honestly, this is unfortunate, man. I mean, at least they're getting by with something. That's the at least part. It'd be better if they had more, but it's really shitty circumstances. But I was used to simple food, and I didn't mind the taste. The only thing I hated about those meals was hearing my mother apologize as she put them on the table. Every time she reflexively muttered, "I'm sorry," I thought of all the times she'd said that phrase before, a chain of meaningless words stretching back into the past. It made me sad for reasons I couldn't express. We carried on like that for a full year. God damn! It definitely wasn't an easy situation, but I tried to lessen my mother's burden by adjusting to our frugal new lifestyle as best as I could. So, I think it's at this point, like 1 year ago, like we just, advanced a year. Before we advanced a year, before Yuuji moved away with, his mother and everything, I think that was, like, coming up to the end of when he was seeing Sachi, I think. Not really sure. I'm just trying, line things up and when they happened. I'm not exactly sure. So, I think at this point, Sachi's, going through her issues. I'm not exactly sure. I didn't need anything more. Well, a decently sized fridge would have made things a little more convenient. Not exactly a Charles Dickens novel, just a humble life. It wasn't so bad. I could go through my daily routine without causing problems for someone else. I had enough food that I wouldn't starve. When I was injured or sick, I could go to the doctor. The two of us just had to scrape along like this for a while. Eventually, I'd start working, and we'd be able to afford a little more in the way of luxuries. But just as that modest hope was starting to take root in my heart, it was ripped away by a terror I'd nearly managed to forget. Dad found us again. Fuck. He appeared abruptly one evening, just as my mother was putting on her makeup in preparation for her night job at the snack bar. Oh shit. Yeah! I just didn't know how long it was gonna take. More than a year? And holy shit, you look terrible. Oh fuck. I had no idea. Why do they use those generic noises? I didn't point that out last time, but holy shit. I had no idea how he discovered our whereabouts. But at that moment, I was less shocked by my father's sudden arrival than by how dramatically he had changed. The stench of alcohol wafted from his body, stinging my nose. He had always been a slender man. Now his cheeks were hollow. His clouded eyes, sunken deep in their sockets, reflected the dim electric light with a sickly sheen. Glaring at the two of us as we stood there in shock, my father pushed his way into the room. And taking Mom's wallet from her handbag, he pulled out the 3 1,000 yen bills remaining inside and thrust them toward me. What the fuck? Taking the 3 bills he'd practically slapped onto my chest, I looked up at my mother with pleading eyes. What do we do? What should I do? Just say the word, tell me to fight. I'll throw myself at him without the slightest hesitation. Mom answered my unspoken words with the pitifully artificial smile I knew so well.
ごめんね、ユージ。お願い、お酒買ってきてくれる？
Damn it, dude. That smile made me incredibly sad. Yeah, I wonder why. A year earlier, just before Mom and I fled, my father had owed his creditors about 32 million. 32 million! Alright, hold on a second. Hold on. Okay, okay, Google. What is 32 million yen in US dollars? Alright, it is... Holy shit, that's $277,000. We could just round that up to about 300,000. That's a lot of money right there. Holy shit. I have no way of knowing exactly how the man spent that year, but it's probably safe to assume he kept up a less than responsible lifestyle. In fact, it seems he sunk so deeply into self-indulgence that his debt ballooned to many times its original size, and just to top things off, his latent alcoholism had returned with a vengeance. And the man had ignored us totally for a year after our escape. Why track us down now? what was the point? I have to assume he was looking for money. Not that we had any to give him, of course. Mom had apparently been putting aside that little she could in hopes of sending me to college. But we were struggling just to keep food on the table. Everything we had wouldn't have made a dent in the amount he owed. It was indescribably frustrating to buy that man alcohol with money Mom and I had saved by pinching every penny. Still, neither of us knew how to fight back. As I returned home after buying a 2-liter bottle of shochu, or shoku, I don't know what that is, at the neighborhood supermarket, a grimy little K car parked near our house caught my eye. On my way out, still reeling from shock, I hadn't even noticed it was there. It must have been the vehicle my father had driven here. Had he sold off the foreign car he used to own for some quick cash? Peering inside in the window, I could make out a pile of empty Chuhai cans and a dirty blanket inside. My father just might have been living in that thing. Pathetic. A man who drove a car like that had sunk his claws into us yet again. What was going to happen to me and Mom now? Even for a child, the thought was enough to prompt a nauseating wave of fear and disgust. What I want to know is, how the fuck did he buy the alcohol? I hate him. I wish he'd just die. The words oozed up from somewhere deep inside me like toxic sludge. A shiver ran down my spine. When you wish for something like that, it might come back to haunt you someday. Just like when my sister died, I'll regret it in the end. Regret it? Really? Would I really feel anything if that leech of a man ended up dead? Just knowing that I'd bought that bottle of alcohol for him, I could barely keep myself from smashing it against the ground. How much could I regret the death of someone like him? I don't know. I squeezed the bottle of shochu tightly and bit my lower lip, trying to calm down. But in that moment, I heard glass breaking inside the house, and Mom screamed. Oh shit, dude. Mom? A bewildering storm of emotions surged through me. Uncertainty, fear, anger, but even so, I knew I had to help Mom. Rushing forward in panic, I burst into the house. Oh my god. Jesus Christ. When I pushed open the door, I was greeted by the sight of my father, his eyes bloodshot and clouded with madness, forcibly pressing my mother against the ground. His dark reddish His dark reddish penis stood out against her pale naked body. Please don't show us this. Mom? Abuse, rape, alcoholic, fantastic. Yeah. Where do you want me to go? Stop it, Dad. What are you doing to her? Well, yeah, and you're doing any better? What the fuck? Jesus. Roaring with anger, my father smacked Mom in the face. Even as she cried out, my mother forced that pathetic excuse for a smile onto her face, her eyes pleading for me to flee. The bitter taste of helplessness filling my mouth, I left the bottle of alcohol on the tatami mat, I don't know what that is, turned my back, and ran out the door. I ran away. I abandoned my mother. I couldn't stop him. I was a child. What else was I supposed to do? The excuses came easily enough, but I was still ashamed of myself. All that talk about helping my mother, in the end, I deserted her. What if something terrible happened to Mom? Stupid. Something terrible already was happening. Mom was crying. She was crying over her own powerlessness. And I wasn't any different. Even as I watched Mom suffering, I cringed at my father's rage, and then I ran away without doing a thing, without even trying. At this rate, nothing was going to change. No one was ever going to save us. Our neighbors hated trouble. They'd probably slam the door in my face if I asked for help. I thought about going to the police, but if we made this into something serious, we'd end up being forced to move all over again. Just the thought of it was frustrating. And the thought of some bored policeman in a dingy little station sneering, "Can't you solve your own family squabbles?" was downright infuriating. That would not go down. Alright, I don't know how it is in Japan, but here in America, man, if you go in there and you're like, oh yeah, there's this abuse, there's this rape, there's this alcoholic bitch, like, things are gonna go down. What would Kazuki have done at a time like this? Of course, she would have used her head and come up with some clever solution to fix everything. But I was no genius. Idiots can't solve their problems in one neat stroke. Still, even an idiot can learn how to blunder their way forward eventually. Even if it didn't work the first time, we could just look for another chance to run away from Dad. We just have to start over again from square one, as many times as it took. Holding on to that newfound determination, I stopped in my tracks and headed back toward the house as fast as I could manage. So wait, he just ran in one direction and just, you know, he's like, oh, you know what? Gotta do something. Turn around. I was worried about my mother. I could see her being beaten, punched, kicked, apologizing again and again, answered by more blows. My imagination urged me on until my legs couldn't keep up. Frustration built inside me with every stride. By the time I reached home, my heart was pounding like an alarm bell, and my mind was simmering with anger. I slipped quietly into the house, trying not to give myself away, and inside I found my mother being raped by my father. Mom. I'm really glad they're not showing this. The room was filled with a choking animal stink. The wet slapping of skin against skin reverberated against the walls, and the light of the setting sun slanting in through the window. I could see my mother's face, limp with defeat. Her eyes were unfocused, and when I took in the bizarre sight of my father biting into her breast with an expression of deranged pleasure on his face, the first thought to pop into my head was a childish misunderstanding. He's eating Mom! God damn it, Yuuji! Stop it! Get off of her! God damn, dude. This person's fucking terrible. When I jumped forward instinctively to pull Dad away, he hit me with all of his strength. The ruthless backhand blow smashed into the side of my face. As I fell stunned to the ground, I remember feeling some strange object inside my mouth. The instant I realized it was a fragment of a broken tooth, I lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, about an hour had passed. The room had grown dim and my vision was blurry. I can only just make out my mother. Her body was covered in filth. She lay perfectly still, completely drained of the will to resist. The man was still 1 hour later? Jesus Christ, dude! I'll kill him. A flash of white-hot anger ran through me. In an instant, the passive thought, I wish he'd just die, had been transformed into a concrete urge to kill. Stand up. Fight back. Nothing was ever going to change if we kept running away. Nothing was ever going to change unless I changed myself. No matter how bitter reality might be, I had to face it. I had to fight back. There was no other choice. Kill him, kill him, kill him, kill him. As the words rang out like a siren inside my mind, I reflexively reached out and took the bottle of alcohol, still sitting on the floor where I'd left it. Fierce anger pulsed through me until it felt like my head would burst. And cutting through it all, I thought I heard my sister's voice.
文字を書いたり箸を持つのは右。ボールを投げたりバッターボックスに立つときは左。じゃあ、人を殺すときはどっちの手？
With my right hand, I lifted the bottle over my father as he grunted and thrusted his hips, and then I swung it down onto the back of his head as hard as I could. A jarring impact ran through my arm as glass met skull. With a tremendous crashing sound, the bottle shattered against my father's head. Alright, we get it. Covered in alcohol and jagged fragments of glass. My father let out a few loud groans, then went still. Mom, are you okay? Come on, get up. We have to get out of here. Oh, god damn, she looks terrible. I bent down and helped Mom out from underneath my father's limp body. I tried to pull her toward the door, but she didn't move. Her face was swollen, covered in vicious dark red bruises, and her eyes were dull and unfocused.
Yu-chan.
That was a name my mother used to call me when I was much, much younger. It was pretty girly, so I didn't really like it at the time. Sometimes it even made me think Mom wanted a girl instead. I remember getting angry every time she used it. Mom, let's get out of here, okay? This time we'll go somewhere really far away.
そうね。また逃げなきゃね。
In response to my voice, Mom's mouth curved into a weak, strangely resigned grin. Somehow, it wasn't quite the same as her usual forced smile.
でもどこまで逃げればいいんだろうね。いつまで逃げればいいのかしら。
As much as it takes, bitch. I mean, that dude. As she mumbled those words, her gaze turned to my father, lying quietly on the ground with his back turned to us. He hadn't even twitched since the blow to his
ご
head.
めんね。ゆうちゃんは足が速いから走って逃げなさい。私はこの人が私たちを追ってこれないようにするから先に逃げなさい。お母さん後から行くから。
Mom slowly picked her battered body up off the floor. Taking a small drawstring bag, she slipped it on our bank book and seal, added the cash left in her wallet, then hung it around my neck. All the money we'd been saving little by little was in that bank account.
これが私たちの全財産。なくさないようにしっかり持っているのよ。ほら、早く逃げなさい。
Run? To where? Her mouth again pushing itself into a grin. Mom tilted her head absent-mindedly.
そうね。とりあえず駅かな。
As she mumbled those words, her eyes staring vacantly up at the ceiling, I thought I could smell the reek of death wafting from her body. My mother seemed to be gazing into some far-off place, a place outside the world. I swallowed a wad of spit. It felt like a rock in my throat.
大丈夫？ゆうちゃん、一人で行ける？
The question frightened me for some reason, and I just didn't understand. I nodded my head vigorously. It's fine. I'm not a kid anymore. I can go on my own. When I spoke those words, my mother's face bloomed into a pure, genuine smile.
そっか。だったら一人で頑張って。ほら、もう行きなさい。
It was an innocent expression, a 10-year-old girl's smile. Another jolt of... Wait, what the fuck? 10-year-old? Okay, whatever. Another jolt of instinctive fear ran through me. I burst out the door and took off toward the station. I ran, trying to escape my own terror. It followed. I could almost hear its footsteps tapping steadily behind me. I ran desperately, gulping down air, the world in a blur, until finally I was in front of the station. After catching my breath, I sat down on the bench to wait for my mother. Reaching up to the drawstring bag around my neck, I squeezed it tightly in my hand. A powerful wave of anxiety pressed down on my chest. What are we gonna do now? It's fine. We'll figure something out. I wasn't really convinced of that, but forcing myself to think it'll all work out somehow was the only way I could keep the fear from crushing me under its weight. I sat there completely alone, listening to the shrill cries of the insects. By the time I looked up at the clock mounted on the side of the station building, it was already past 7. The air was starting to grow uncomfortably cold. Just as I was beginning to regret not taking my jacket, an ambulance screamed by on the road in front of the station. The startling wail of the siren instantly fanned the flames of my anxiety. Dad must be dead. It wouldn't be surprising. After all, I hit him as hard as I could. I was trying to kill him. I'd murdered my own father, and then I'd run away and left my mother behind, all by myself. What good am I if I can't protect Mom at a time like this? Why was I even born? Throwing myself up off the bench, I set out in a sprint back toward the house. Hold on, Mom. I'm coming. My mother was a weak person. When Kazuki was alive, she'd been indifferent to me. But I wouldn't exist without her. She gave birth to me. She took me with her when she ran. I owed her everything. If I ran away now, I'd regret it for the rest of my life. Much, much more than having killed my own father. I rushed down the familiar streets that led to our house, wanting nothing more than to see my mother again. Just like that day when I'd sprinted all the way to the canning factory to meet her after work. I ran. Alright, well, I know you guys want to know what happens next, and so do I, but we are out of time for this episode. So thank you very much for watching, boys and girls. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave a like and all that. I'll see you guys next time here in the Labyrinth of Grisaia. Some deep-ass shit. Sorry I have to kind of, like, end it right here. Really sorry, but yeah, take it easy, guys.